Welcome to Family Capital Reimagined, PwC's thought leadership series, where we explore how Indian business families are redefining success, moving beyond wealth preservation and business management to unlocking the full potential of family capital. This holistic approach integrates family businesses, family offices, philanthropy, and diverse ventures to build legacies that last across generations. Today, we are honored to host Dr. Aarti Gupta, Chief Investment Officer of the Gupta Family Office, promoter of the Jagran Group. The Jagran Group, renowned for its flagship publication, Dainik Jagran, is one of India's largest media houses with a rich legacy in news and information. Aarti brings deep family heritage and global expertise, holding a PhD from IIT Kanpur, a postgraduate diploma from Harvard University, and a master's from Northeastern University, offering a grounded yet far-reaching perspective on investing and institutional building. Beyond her CIO role, she is managing partner at Anikarth Ventures, an independent director at leading corporates, and a vocal advocate for women's economic empowerment through leadership at Harvard Global V, Vicky Flow, and Anikarth Foundation. She also shares her insights widely through a weekly Hindi column in Dainik Jagran and as a judge and investor on premier Indian TV shows spotlighting emerging startup founders. In this episode, we explore how Aarti is shaping the future of family capital for one of India's most prominent business families, blending tradition with innovation and personal conviction with professional rigor to forge a lasting legacy and inspire meaningful impact. Thank you, Aarti, for joining us today.
Thank you, Falguni. A pleasure to be on this.
I'm going to start this conversation with your personal journey, Aarti. You come from a business family. You mentioned engaged in media business, and then you're married into one which is also engaged in a media business. But you have taken up this unique position of being a CIO of family office rather than jump into the operating role. So please tell our viewers what motivated you to really take up this role of a CIO, any challenges that you faced, and how your families helped you.
So honestly, I don't think it didn't happen like someone like handed me on a platter, ki welcome Aarti, welcome to the family. This is the CIO title. This is your seat today, and you can take on this role. I did not inherit the role. I think it's a role which I slowly and steadily carved for myself. I did not even know that this role existed or the family office existed while I was building this. So just to sort of rewind, I'm born and brought up in Hyderabad, media family, went abroad, studied in Boston for 6 years, went to top universities, got married into Kanpur. So basically my move was from Boston to Kanpur into this amazing, loving family. Imagine a Suraj Barjatya film, beautiful, loving, joint family. And I'd always expressed that I wanted to work. Family was okay. I joined my husband while he was setting up Radio City, in a ceremonious marketing role, right? And somehow that felt very titular as I kept doing this. And I didn't feel that was my calling, right? So step back, applied for a PhD at IIT Kanpur. And at that same time, because we had a liquidity event in the family, I saw a flood of managers sort of coming to my father-in-law and like every day him getting hassled because he was already in a full-time role with the operating business, and he had to navigate all of this. And given my economics background, I'm like, oh my God, this is something I can do. Papa, let me help you with this. And, I started putting an Excel sheet together and slowly suggesting him to sort of move from FDs and insurance policy, which was initially what the portfolio was entirely of, and suggested him, let's move to FMPs, maybe a few mutual funds and things like that. So that 15 years back, today is now a full-fledged family office, where we do everything from tax planning, asset allocation, philanthropy, and a whole bunch of other things. So I don't think anyone sort of, there was a ready role, but yeah, it was unplanned, and I think some of the best stories are unplanned,
Sure. Yes.
and like you said, there wasn't a choice or an either or. Ki, should I participate in the operating business or do this? I think I rather saw a gap
Yeah.
and sort of jumped in and said, hey, maybe I could do this, and learned it on the way, right? Like, so, yeah. And in terms of challenges, oh my God, so many. And you, as a woman in finance,
Sure.
would relate to it. There have been so many rooms where I was the only woman,
Yes.
right? There have been so many times I've sat across bankers and, like, wealth managers who've assumed I'm not here because I deserve to be there, or rather, I actually have the decision making power.
Yeah.
And I decide this. I've had bankers sort of approach my father-in-law, and him saying, like, Aarti looks into this, looks after this investment, reach out to her. And they explain the product to me. And then they call him up and say, sir, decision kya liya? And assuming that I don't have the decision making power, right? Like, so lived through all of these biases. But yeah, I think I've enjoyed shattering those glass ceilings.
Yes.
As well, right? Like, so I think it's been a fantastic learning experience. So challenges there. I think the biggest challenge was also that, I didn't see anyone who looked like me do this before. I did not have role models, right? Like, so I didn't know how to sort of knock on someone's door, or like pick up the phone and say, hey, you're a daughter-in-law of the family, have you done this? Like, try to build a family office. I've had a lot of great mentors, men who've leading family offices, who could explain me the technical aspect of it, and but very few women in this role who I could lean into and sort of ask for guidance and mentorship. So I think that's one of the reasons, like I told you before, agreeing to this, right, is I want to do this because I want more girls and women out there to know that you can be this as well, right? Like, yeah, absolutely.
So thank you so much. What a wonderful story, Adi. And I have picked up few learnings for us. You said there was a liquidity event which triggered the thought of family office. So we often get this situation where client comes to us and says, "What is family office? Why do I need one?" And you are saying liquidity event triggered one. The second thing that I picked up was kudos to your family members, which allowed you the space, empowerment, decision making authority. Maybe that was not written, but they practiced it truly, and which gave you opportunity to flourish. And third thing, you spoke about breaking the glass ceiling, and salute to you for that. Maybe with that, I'll move to my next question.
Sure.
Uh, when we talk about family office and managing a corpus under the belt, there is always a conversation on balancing. You're balancing risk, liquidity, ambitions of different family members. There is so many opportunities flying around, different geographies, different instruments. So how do you, as an in charge of family office, really balance this? And what kind of yardstick policy that you apply while you make any investment decision? Do you have any investment policy in place? How do you really go about doing this?
So, Falguni, I do want to tell out here that uh, every family should have a different way of doing it and their own individualistic way of doing it. Putting together a family office, or rather a family office, in my understanding today, is not just managing wealth of the family. It's actually managing the family, right? Like, so it's beyond just wealth. So I don't think just a simple asset allocation model, or like a Harry Markowitz frontier curve things, sort of a risk return profile, sort of really just that works, right? The way we operate is we create, sort of, we sit and understand every family member's needs, goals, aspirations, at what stage of life they are, and then create individual investment profiles for them. You mentioned an investment policy document, what we call IPD. We have that for every family member. So probably a family, my father-in-law's investment philosophy or the way we invest for him is different than what we invest for my daughter, right? Both very different age profiles, both very different risk profiles. Liquidity needs for both are different. My daughter probably does not need money for another 10 years and can sort of safely invest into asset classes which are more illiquid long term, whereas my father-in-law has the need for certain liquidity every year, right? Like, so we approach it different for different family members. And we sit down and understand their goals, aspirations. What are their short-term goals? Maybe some family member wants to take a vacation home 2 years later, so you plan it accordingly. Maybe some don't. Some want to like sort of move to another country. Like there are all these different scenarios. So there is no cookie cutter formula, right? So imagine there is no cookie cutter formula for one family. How so there shouldn't be like a cookie cutter formula for a family office in general across families, right? We actually go micro level at an individual level. So that's how we balance it, like,
And I'm going to build on to that, Adi. In today's day, most people are talking about investing into ventures, startups. So there is this growing need to give a piece of investment into innovations. And when you go about doing it, what approach do you follow? Do you look at some sectors, some opportunities? How do you spot the right venture to invest in?
Yeah, so investing into ventures, the family largely is a little bit more conservative. So when I approach investing through wealth pools, like, create a safety net first, create a lifestyle pool, and then think about an aspirational pool where your venture investing or investing into innovation goes, right? When we, from our family office, we invest into new age ventures largely through experts or fund managers through a fund route, right? I also truly enjoy meeting and investing into new age companies. So I have a company between me and my husband called Anikarth Ventures, where we do direct investment, right? So sort of meet new age startups at an early stage, figure out what we can offer to them more than just money, where we can help them and invest into them. So we've invested in about 45, 50 odd startups, and it's sector agnostic, but it's places where where we see potential, B, like I said, where we can add value more than just money, right? So things which help our operating businesses, things from where we can help from our operating businesses, from our expertise, learnings, through different networks, all of that, right? I just want to add over here, I think another advantage to investing into innovation, these new age companies for us has been that it's been a front row seat to seeing what is happening new in the world, right? Which helps us in our operating business because we are into industries which are traditional, whether it's media, whether it's real estate, whether it's manufacturing, they're traditional businesses. So some of the most interesting conversations are when I sit at dinner table and, like me and my brother-in-law, me and my husband, are we discussing, I'm like, what, I met this startup and this can help us over here. See how they're doing it, right? Like maybe this can help there. And then we connect, the two of them and then things move forward. So love that piece. I think for us, investing into innovation is not just financial, right? It's a lot to do to add value to the operating business.
So again, you made so many important points when we spoke about investment policy. To begin with, you said no cookie cutter approach, go individual need wise and invest, balance the need for liquidity. What I also loved was your statement around pools. You said safety net, so important for family offices. Then you said luxuries, and then you said aggressive venture investing. The third thing that I loved, Aarti, was when you spoke of venture investing, you said we invest in ventures where we can give back something rather than just the money. and also learn from them. And that's what we keep talking about, balancing between innovation and emerging trends, and at the same time preserve your core legacy businesses. So relate with everything that you said, and thank you for
Yeah, you don't want to become another Xerox, right? Like, so yeah, you have to sort of keep your eye on the price.
yeah. See, Adi, I mean, moving on from the investment policy, from the PwC's perspective, if I just connect the dots, we've been, seeing in the world around the term family capital as being focused on. So, what we are seeing people understanding and doing is, when we speak about family ecosystem, they are in core businesses, then they manage family office, then there is foundations of philanthropic ventures, and then there are innovation and non-core ventures. So people have been bringing all these four pieces together and are managing that under the edges of family office. How do you see your family office and your family businesses kind of converging or coming together? Do you see this four buckets: family office, family business, philanthropy, and new ventures coming together in some way?
100%. Like, I think family office is more, like I said, more than just managing wealth, right? And you brought out this really important point about family capital, right? And people normally assume that family capital is just financial capital, right? I think it's much more than that, right? Family capital includes financial capital, which is all your assets, definitely. But I remember reading this, it stuck with me. It also includes human capital and intellectual capital, right? Now, human capital is how how much investment is being done into the family members, into their education, mental well-being, their physical well-being, all of that, right? Yeah. Because a family will only grow and survive if the human capital grows and survives, right? And then the third piece is the intellectual capital, which in you know, fa- generational families like ours is the conversation which happens over dinner tables and the value system and the ethics of the capital of the family, right? For us, our lunch table, because we all meet for lunch every day, and our lunch table conversations, at least for me, having been married into the family for almost 20 years, this is what gave me insight to what the family is really about, right? What is the ethos of the family? What are its ethics? What are the value systems? And that is very important. I think a lot of people miss out on the human capital and the intellectual capital and only concentrate on the financial capital. Another aspect which in addition to human and financial, intellectual and financial, is the legacy capital, which brings in the philanthropy aspect, right? What is that one mission, vision of the family, the legacy of the family, which can relate, which generations can relate to, right? And usually it's not just the operating business, because operating business evolves and like takes downturns and upturns, and maybe one generation relates to it, the other does not. So it's not usually the operational capital, operating business. So it's important that the family creates some sort of a philanthropic venture, its legacy capital, something which will tie a 5-year-old and an 80-year-old and like sort of make them think at the same level. In our family, we run an educational trust with schools and colleges, which is in Baba's name, my husband's grandfather, and it's run by one of my bhabis, and that's an excellent space. I think that's something which, as an entire family, we're very, very passionate about education, right? Because we're in media business. Sub padho, literacy has always been something which we've been very passionate about. And I didn't think of it before, but I recently started my foundation, and Anikat Foundation, and it runs this program called I Am My Own Lakshmi, right? Which is financial literacy for women, right? So while I felt passionate about empowerment, I was thinking that, because I was like, part of this whole intellectual capital and conversations over lunches about literacy and education, and that was so deeply imbibed in the family, that when I chose my philanthropic calling, it was also literacy, but merged with women empowerment, right? So, again, very important for families to sort of offer that legacy capital, but allow family members to sort of grow within it, right? Like, yeah.
So, family capital, you spoke about financial capital, then you gave it a color of human capital and intellectual capital. You also spoke about leaving behind the legacy capital. You somewhere touched upon ethos and values, and which in my terminology is the spiritual capital that we kind of leave behind. And then you spoke about at the end of all of it, what you really believe in, the passion, and you spoke very highly about, women empowerment. And on that note, I'm going to go into my next question, which is around women empowerment. I think you've been leading this role as a CIO. You've seen people working together very closely, women working in the business environment. You are actively engaged with Vicky Flow. You're doing Harvard Global V. I want to know, in today's day and time, how do you see women's role evolving, particularly in the family businesses? And what, according to you, are still some systemic cultural barriers which need to be addressed?
Great question. Like, and something which I can speak for hours. We'll need a whole different episode for this, but I'll try to contain my thoughts and answer this concisely. I think daughters and daughter-in-laws, I repeat, not just daughters, but daughter-in-laws can play a great role in family businesses and also in sort of navigating and stewarding family offices and family wealth, right? People underestimate the value and the interest which a daughter-in-law can build in preserving and growing generational wealth. Who more will have a bigger interest in growing this wealth than the daughter-in-law of the family? Because it's her kids who are going to inherit this wealth, right? She's going to pass it on to them. So she has the biggest interest to maintaining and being a custodian of this wealth. This is the biggest unlocking potential today we have in families, and I highly urge all families to unlock this, right? To bring daughters and daughter-in-laws into the whole family capital piece, right? And in whatever role they want, whether they want to sort of contribute towards the financial capital, towards the legacy capital, however they want to sort of contribute, they're free to contribute. But please do. I think they play a big role, right? The Nobel Prize winner Claudia Golden, right? She spoke about this children tax, right? Child tax, where women sort of bear an unusually or rather face a harsh treatment once they have a child, right? Their salaries go down, and there's a pay gap between men and women once a woman has a child. I want to take one step back, and I feel a lot of women in India pay a marriage tax, right? So, once we get married, our entire life sort of gets reorganized, right? And and women, and rather girls, who are so intentional about their life before marriage, which university I'm going to go to, and how am I going to study, and which internship I'm going to land, and what am I going to do after this, and how we have it all planned. And I'm saying this by personal experience, right? I had everything planned to the T, which university, how, when, everything. And most girls have it. Somehow that intentionality goes away once you get married, right? And we stop putting the dots. Like, Steve Jobs said, you can only connect the dots looking backwards. You can't connect the dots looking forward, right? But if, as a woman, I've stopped putting dots for myself, even looking backwards, there's nothing to connect, right? Like, so my message, or rather what I want to tell all women out there to do, is keep putting the dots. I did that for myself, right? When I moved from Boston to Kanpur, I was starting again, right? But I moved. Like when I joined IIT, it felt like, oh my God, what am I doing? Where is it going to go? Right? But I put that dot, right? When I sort of started creating that Excel sheet, let me help Papa with some investments, let me learn about investments. It was about putting dot. At that time, nothing was adding up. It felt like random jigsaw pieces, right? Today, it all looks like, oh my God, look at her journey. It's like, beautiful, fabulously. How did she get that role, right? But it didn't happen like that. It's only connecting backwards. The important thing is you keep putting enough dots so that it connects when you look backwards, right? Like, so, yeah.
Maybe if I can add two things. You spoke about women's role and you said, be it financial capital or be it non-financial legacy capital, women can play tremendous role in family business. And what I do see very closely, and you touched upon that, was women playing significant role in building, nurturing human capital, the intellectual capital of the family. They are the ones who are going to shape the spiritual capital of the next gen, which is coming into the business. And you can never undermine that value. I just wanted to also, thank you for talking about the dots. Keep putting the dots. Do not quit. Keep moving ahead. Because sometimes in the journey, people really hold back themselves by thinking that, oh, can I do this? Can I evolve into this newer role, this newer city, this newer avatar? But keep moving ahead. And that was very, very important message. So thank you, Aarti, for that.
Falguni, I'm going to just take this thing. I know I've said that women should do philanthropy and the intellectual and the human capital, everything is very important. But every woman needs to understand the financial capital. They need to sort of understand and know money matters. Today, it is paramount that you know where your family assets are, how investments are being done, and there is nothing which should prevent you from doing that. Like, this is what it is. We say that I am my own Lakshmi. So financial capital plus whatever you want to add, right? This is non-negotiable for women. Yes.
True. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to move to a very different dimension, maybe related with the role that you're playing. Adi, you come from Kanpur. Whenever I go to cities like Kanpur or Vijayawada or Vishakhapatnam, I see tremendous entrepreneurial stories developing into these tier 2 cities. I call them Kalka Bharat because tomorrow's big Indian stories are going to come from these cities. You also meet so many new entrepreneurs on the show that you are judging. What is your thoughts around this new entrepreneurial wave, and how is it shaping India's business landscape today?
Rightly said, like, if India wants to like fulfill the 2047 Viksit Bharat goal, the development or the growth has to come beyond the Mumbai and the Delhi and the Bangalore, right? It has to come from your tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities, tier 4 cities. It has to come from Bharat, right? And that is happening today. As a country, we have the AAA advantage, age, access, and aspiration, right? But this advantage is more probably in tier 2, tier 3 cities, right? There is youth which wants to stay where it is, right, and work there. There is aspiration because you see all your like fancy coffee shops to 10-minute deliveries to everything happening in tier 2, tier 3 cities. And there's access, right, with your digital payment infrastructure and everything. Today, a vegetable vendor also has access to credit and your UPI and all of that. So this has sort of unlocked a potential where today, if I'm sitting in Kashmir, I can sell my carpet to someone sitting in Coimbatore, and I don't need to come to Bombay to sell that, right? And that has created a new wave of entrepreneurs, right? And I saw some amazing, I was on, and I'm an investor on this TV show on Amazon called Bharat Ke Super Founders. And the purpose of the show was that to show founders from different parts of the country and we saw such amazing startups from Jalgaon to Jaipur, right? Someone was making, utilizing bananas from and creating this amazing banana chips from Jalgaon, to someone who is using and recycling tire waste from Jaipur, right? Fantastic startups. And this is the new Bharat, right? Like, because they're not just sort of like, oh my God, this is happening in Silicon Valley, maybe I can bring that to India. They are solving problems which are of Bharat and coming up with solutions from where they are, right? And I think that is amazing. And if family offices can sort of tap into this and unlock this potential, there is, I mean, yeah, it will create wonders. I'm very excited about Bharat, and I mean, I love meeting these founders, whether I invest in them or not. Like, I love meeting them.
Absolutely. So, on that note, Aarti, even in your family, you might have a situation where on one side you are trying to preserve the legacy that the family members have built over generation, and at the same time there is a need to move ahead, embrace new innovations, adopt emerging trends. How do you in your family achieve a balance between these two? Do you have any story to tell us about?
I think it's as a family, it's important to have that discussion, that what is worth preserving and what is worth changing or letting go, right? A lot of times families think, the way they are running a factory is worth preserving, or their certain investment styles are worth preserving, or certain people who are part of the operating business are worth preserving. I think what's worth preserving is the value system of the family, right? What's worth preserving is that legacy, right? What's worth preserving is the experience from the elders. Personally, what can innovate is the way you operate, right? Even the businesses you operate will innovate. If they don't innovate, we're not going to be there 10 years later, right? Like, earlier I would have said we're not going to be there 20 years later, but today, if you don't innovate, you might not be there next year, right? So I think that's worth innovating. Something as simple as, what I do, right? Like, if I just stuck to what the family was doing in terms of investments, which is insurance and FDs, right, for years, and that's also a great way to sort of just preserve capital, right? But here I came in and I put an idea into the family that, ठीक है, आपने ये पूरा मेहनत किया है, you've earned that wealth. Can this wealth you've earned become a wealth creator? Right? We will take risk, but it's not risk free. We are taking risk, but can this wealth created become another source of wealth and not just a source of preservation, right? So that was innovation, and it was challenging. I say I got inducted by passing through fire, because I started looking at investments in 2008. I suggested the family, let's move into equity, and the financial crisis of 2008 happened. So imagine those dinner table conversations, right? Where I'm like, equity is great. It's not that risky as we are thinking. And the portfolio is like down 35%. So it is, innovation is always challenging, right? But I think if you sort of stick through it and you believe in what you're doing and you make people understand, it is the only way to survive.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you. Can I also ask you one more question? When we talk about building legacies, it is for the next generations, right? So, today when you think about the next generation, what do you believe are those basic qualities and mindsets that they need to bring or they need to be nurtured about, so that the family businesses or family offices can successfully continue to lead and grow the family capital? So, what do really need to be done about this next generation? Mindset, qualities, values?
There could be many, but I think the most important for me is to make sure that every generation, so the next generation, has resilience. I think that is something which truly gets missed. So we've heard the shirtless to shirtless in 3 generations proverb, right? Everyone in this industry knows that the first generation, sort of does the mehnat, grows the wealth. The second generation sort of, builds it up, and the third generation loses it, right? Like, it's not that the third generation is not intelligent or stupid, right? It's just that I feel that because they've not undergone certain hardships, resilience is missing, right? And we need to make sure that we develop that in our next generation. It's very difficult. I'm a mom to a 16-year-old. Even before she falls, I want to pick her up, right? I want to solve everything for her. I want to put everything on a, silver plate and offer it to her. But if I do that, like, if I sort of make sure she doesn't fall, she'll never know how to get up, right? So it's extremely important. Resilience is like a muscle. It needs to be trained. We need to ensure that the next generation is allowed to fail, right? Like, I have made so many mistakes, expensive ones, right? But fortunately, my family allowed me to fail, right? And that's how I've developed resilience. That's why today I can take that call that, okay, I know I've made a mistake. I know not to repeat it, right? Like, so one quality for next gen, resilience. Yes.
Yes, superb. Okay, you're running a successful family office, Aarti. So my last question to you would be, today, suddenly everybody is thinking about family office without really realizing what family office is all about. So if you were to give 3 tips to a person who wants to set up a family office or reshape his existing family office, so that it survives long term, it builds value for the family, what would that be?
3, huh? So, first and foremost, no cookie cutter formula. If someone's telling you and giving you a template, make your family office like this, that's not the way to go about it. Family office is about family, and no two families are same. So, no two family offices can be similar. It needs to be personal. It needs to cater to your own families. So, build structure, keeping not capital in mind or money in mind, but family in mind, right? I mean, I would also suggest that family offices take time to build, right? So trust the process. Don't expect, like, once you've created something, that's set in stone. It's an evolving process. It's an evolving document. So, keep that frame of mind that things will change, and keep that open mind. And finally, I mean, enjoy the process, like, have fun. I love doing what I do every single day, right? So if you're leading a family office, you have to really enjoy doing this, right? Because it can get, especially as a family member, it can get extremely stressful, right, at times. Because if you're a professional CIO, you're going to your house and you have no one to answer to. But if you're a family member managing the family office or managing wealth of family members, buddy, you're not going anywhere. You're like at dinner, lunches with them, even holidays with the family. So make sure you enjoy this, because it can get stressful, right? Have fun.
Uh, so I'm going to add a follow-up question, Aarti. See, you said we have created an approach which is no cookie cutter, but as per individual needs. Then you said enjoy the process, and you are answerable. So where you said you're meeting all your family members every day dinner table, so you're answerable to them. And that made me ask you this question to say, what process do you really follow in terms of monitoring, MIS, being answerable back to your family? Do you have any governance at a family office level to which you observe like a casting stone?
Yeah, I mean, like we follow a process where the IPT is put into place, and the family office works with a bunch of advisors and managers and like everyone. But we do hold at least monthly or quarterly meetings depending upon the family member. Some people prefer monthly, some people prefer quarterly, and we sit through and run through the investment decisions and the performance and all of that. I think extremely important for family offices and anyone managing wealth. I've created this myself. I call it the pain framework, like, something so that you don't have to experience pain when you're managing wealth, which is planning, allocating, investing. And the most important thing is navigating and monitoring, right? People invest and then they forget about it. That's not how it works. I think you have to keep individually at a family office level, we're monitoring it almost like, daily sort of a thing. With the family member, we're doing it at a monthly or a quarterly basis. Sometimes family members' goals also change, right? Some requirements come up. So it's very important to have this two-way communication, and keep sort of, pivoting how and when required. Most importantly, transparency. If you've messed up, like, I've always had this thing, I'm going to come out and say, I messed it up. Like, I've taken a wrong call. This is what my thesis was. When I took this call, it no longer holds true. And I think, this is where we are. That gives the family the trust and the confidence that there is a method to this madness, right? And you are in it. So I think transparency is what is set in stone.
Thank you so much. With that, Aarti, we come to the closing of this beautiful session. Thank you so much for your time, and I have picked up a lot of learnings. I loved your thoughts around various aspects of family capital. I loved your thoughts around women empowerment and the fact that you said they must own their financials. And I loved about the way you went about building the family office. I agree with you, family comes first. I agree with you so fully that there can't be a cookie cutter approach. Own what you are delivering. So thank you so much for sharing these wonderful thoughts. I'm hoping our listeners are going to enjoy listening to you.
Thank you so much, Falguni. I thoroughly enjoyed this chat. Like, you had some fabulous questions. Really enjoyed doing this. Super. Thanks.
We hope this conversation inspires business families to embrace a truly holistic approach, integrating business, investments, philanthropy, and governance to create enduring, meaningful impact. We look forward to bringing you more voices shaping future of India's family businesses and family offices.